Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be a small yet powerful nation caught between two giants fighting for dominance? In 2025, Singapore finds itself walking on the edge of a razor, balancing carefully between China and America. Both superpowers want Singapore on their side, both use influence, trade, and diplomacy as tools of power, and both see this small island as a key piece in the global game. The question is, can Singapore remain neutral, or will it be forced to choose a side? Singapore has always been a place of resilience, built on trade, technology, and strategic diplomacy. But today, the pressure is heavier than ever. Let us uncover why Singapore feels trapped, how it manages these competing forces, and what this means for its future. Geography as a double-edged sword. Singapore's location is its greatest strength and its greatest weakness. Sitting at the heart of one of the busiest trade routes in the world, Singapore cannot escape the attention of both China and America. The South China Sea dispute, naval presence, and military alliances make this region one of the most contested places on Earth. Singapore benefits from its position, but this very advantage makes it a battleground of influence. To stand firm, Singapore must constantly navigate waters that are both economically rewarding and politically dangerous. Economic dependence on China. China has become Singapore's largest trading partner, and that relationship runs deep. From manufacturing supply chains to technology cooperation, Singapore has benefited immensely from China's rise. Yet this dependence comes with a price. When China flexes its economic muscles, Singapore feels the tremors. Any attempt to align more closely with America risks angering Beijing, which could retaliate through trade restrictions or diplomatic pressure. For Singapore, every business decision has political consequences. Security ties with America. While China dominates trade, America dominates security. Singapore has long relied on the United States for military cooperation, intelligence sharing, and regional stability. American warships regularly dock at Singapore's ports, symbolizing a partnership rooted in defense. But this reliance ties Singapore to Washington's strategy in Asia. Whenever tensions rise, Singapore faces the uncomfortable task of explaining why it supports an American presence while still insisting it values good relations with China. The battle of technology. Technology is no longer just about innovation, it is about control. China's expansion in artificial intelligence, surveillance systems, and 5G networks has created opportunities but also fears. America warns allies against adopting Chinese tech, claiming it could compromise security. Singapore, a hub for digital transformation, must decide whether to lean toward Chinese solutions or American systems. This is not simply a technical choice, it is a political statement, one that could tilt the balance of power within its borders. The fear of losing neutrality. Singapore has built its global image on being neutral, a place where East meets West in harmony. But neutrality is fragile when great powers demand loyalty. If Singapore leans too far toward China, it risks American suspicion. If it leans too far toward America, it risks Chinese backlash. The fear of losing neutrality is not just about politics, it is about identity. Singapore thrives because the world sees it as independent. Once neutrality is questioned, its reputation as a trusted mediator could collapse. Pressure on ASEAN unity. Singapore is not alone in Southeast Asia, yet it often feels isolated. China pressures ASEAN nations with promises of investment, while America appeals to shared values of freedom and security. Singapore, as one of the most advanced economies in the region, is expected to lead. But leadership is difficult when every move is scrutinized. If Singapore takes a stand, it risks dividing ASEAN. If it stays silent, it risks losing influence. Either way, the pressure is immense. The Financial Balancing Act. Singapore's status as a financial hub depends on trust from both East and West. Chinese investments pour in through infrastructure and business partnerships, while Western companies rely on Singapore as their Asian headquarters. If either side feels unwelcome, Singapore's financial stability could be shaken. This balancing act requires constant diplomacy, quiet negotiations, and policies designed not to offend either superpower. For a nation built on stability, the stakes could not be higher. The shadow of military conflict. Though Singapore itself is not at war, the possibility of conflict in the South China Sea or Taiwan Strait casts a dark shadow. Any escalation between China and America would directly affect Singapore, both economically and militarily. Its ports could become strategic assets, its airspace contested, and its people caught in the middle of a struggle they did not choose. Preparing for peace while bracing for war is the reality Singapore faces daily. Cultural ties and identity struggles. Singapore's population has deep cultural and historical connections to China, but its governance and alliances reflect a Western outlook. This dual identity is both a strength and a burden. On one hand, it allows Singapore to understand and connect with both worlds. On the other, it creates internal debates about where the nation truly belongs. The struggle to maintain unity while managing external pressures adds yet another layer of complexity to its position between the two giants. The quest for survival. Ultimately, everything comes down to survival. Singapore cannot overpower China or America, but it can outsmart them. Survival means staying flexible, refusing to be cornered, and using diplomacy as its strongest weapon. For Singapore, survival is not just about defense or trade, it is about maintaining sovereignty in a world where small nations are often forced to bend. The quest for survival defines every choice Singapore makes in 2025. So, can Singapore continue to walk this tightrope between China and America? Or will the pressure eventually force it into the arms of one giant, losing its independence in the process? This question remains at the heart of Singapore's struggle. What makes Singapore remarkable is not just its wealth or technology but its ability to stand tall in the shadow of superpowers. It is a reminder to the world that even small nations can play a big role when they embrace resilience, strategy, and unity. In the end, Singapore's story is not one of weakness, but of strength in adversity. As we watch the unfolding drama of global politics in 2025, one thing is certain: Singapore's decisions will shape not only its own future but also the future of Asia.